happens, elk actually, and elk you might not know, elk is an old world species. Unlike horses and camels that went from North America over the Bering Strait, the elk came the other way. When they talk about being red deer, they really are closely related to them. I bet most people don't know that. Elk can outrun wolves in level ground, but they can't outmaneuver them in the river bottoms and the creek bottoms. So it changed their behavior. They kept out of those areas. There were less of them. So now the willows and the poplars can grow up to a size that the elk can't browse them. That provided habitat for beavers. So they came in, built dams and that, dammed up the creeks and that. So now you've got bigger areas with fish. So that brings in otters, brings in osprey, bald eagles. And it also provides cover for warblers. So they had warblers that were very rare in the park, now became relatively common. Species that they'd never ever seen in the park, now were in the park. So what it does is it increases, it doesn't make sense initially, but it increases biodiversity. You now have more species and more of those species than you had before. Coyotes can't do what they want. Coyotes hammer rodents. But coyotes can't exist in the wolf pack's territory. They have to exist on the periphery. So they leave the rodents alone. The wolves don't touch the rodents. So now that brings in weasels, badgers, foxes. It brings in your raptors, your buteos, like your red-tailed, Swainson's, Frugin's hawks, prairie falcons, golden eagles. All of those things prey on gophers. So you've got more of them. You've got a healthier, more diverse ecosystem. And not only that, now they're now finding, because they're really studying, and they had no idea that those trees and things that are growing up, now they're getting quite big, and they're stabilizing the riverbanks. So now when you have a flood, sure, it floods over, but it doesn't move. So the rivers are now deeper and not as wide. And so what you've got, it actually changes the geography. What it's called is a trophic cascade. It means the effect that cascades down through the system. And it's really opened up a new field, something that they really didn't have much idea about. And the third example I use is Kingman Island, and that's an American possession. It's on the Line Islands. You can look it up in National Geographic. You can look up all of these, by the way. There's stuff on all of those, mule deer in Wyoming. It's all on the net. Kingman Island is way out. It's 1,000 miles south of Hawaii. There's Line Islands, there's 3 islands, but this is the furthest out. And some biologists about a dozen years or so ago decided they'd like to go out and see what an undisturbed coral reef was really like. And so they went out, and they knew something was different before they even got near to it, because the air was full of birds. Don't see that anywhere else. And they said, okay, we're going to send a photographer down first because we want him to get the pictures to see what it's like before we start messing around. Put him over the side, and he immediately popped back in the boat and said, we can't dive there. It's crawling with sharks, and they're curious. So they had to look at it, and they actually did quite a study on it, and they put it out, published it to their peers, and nobody believed them, or there were a lot of skeptics. What they found was, the reason they didn't believe them, is that 85% of the biomass on the coral reef out there, and they've got a handful of others that are like that, are sharks and groupers, their largest predator. Instead of having a few, like a few wolves and down to lots of prey, pyramid, this one's flipped on its end. And they had to republish it with pictures to silence the doubters. They were getting 30 sharks to a frame in a picture. There was that quality with it. What they found was 99% of what's produced on that reef by prey species are eaten by the predators. But that 1% reproduces in enough numbers and often enough, some of them spawning 3 times a year, that feeds it. But it's really a dog-eat-dog world. The head biologist, and they say if you look it up on National Geographic, says it's like being born again biologist. And he said, I would never swim on a pristine coral reef. Way too dangerous. And why I'm mentioning that, to be an expert is somebody that is not surprised about things in this field. If you say something, they'll say, yeah, that happens, or, oh, really, that's kind of interesting. But I can see that. They're not blown away. And experts should be able to predict. And I've just given you 3 examples. I can give you another one with eider ducks, but that should be enough. Our experts aren't, in my opinion, if you go with that definition. And it really reflects on us and the species. We don't know. I said earlier that we can't duplicate nature, and I gave you examples of that. We don't know really what nature is. And I think the last slide there is up the, yeah, it's gonna, so yeah, that's what I say. What they're looking at now is this, and again, they don't know for sure because of the reasons I just mentioned, but they think in terms, for a ballpark figure, the amount of wildlife that we have on this planet that would be here, that could be here, that perhaps should be here, were we not here, we only have 10% left. Isn't that kind of scary? But you think about it, you read about some of the things. Passenger pigeons, they have documented a flock that was 1.5 miles wide, so that's over 2 kilometers, almost 3 kilometers, well, over 3 kilometers wide, and it went on for over 12 hours. They estimate as largest concentration of birds in the world, 3.5 billion gone. Buffalo, they talk about cod stopping the sailing ships in the water, literally stopping them because there were so many. We have lost that much. And my question is, how much more can we lose? Can we go down 8%? Can we go down 5%? How far do we go? And how do we put it back? Even if we wanted to, which I'm not sure that we do, and I've just talked about development, how we're not doing a very good job, and this is a modern country here, should do better. How do we put it back if we don't even know what that is? If we don't have a clue, when people see it, they don't believe it. That concerns me. So I'm throwing that out as food for thought. Put you out to sea on that. Thank you all, and that's my presentation.